The last couple of months is basically trade between China and the United States has stopped completely. The president has been very clear. He thinks that we have the cards, of course, because we take much more from China than China does from us. But we're going to have a conversation with them. We'll see where it leads. And ultimately, we just want to deal with any country, whether it's China or anybody else, that makes American workers and American businesses in a better position. We just want a fairer deal for American workers, and that's what President Trump is fighting for. I think that it's very achievable with a whole host of countries, but that's the guiding light.
So the president said, you know, maybe American kids should have $3 instead of 30 or whatever the number was. Do you agree? Do you tell the people of this country that you need to make some sacrifices in order to reorganize this bad trade relationship?
Well, I think the president's point here is that, yeah, we do need to become more self-reliant, and that's not going to happen overnight, and it's not always going to be easy, Martha. But what I'd ask people is not whether they want $2 or $5 or $20 for their kids. I'd ask American moms and dads, would you like to be able to go into a pharmacy and know that the drugs your kids need are actually available to you as an American parent? Would you like to, God forbid, if your country goes to a war and your son or daughter is sent off to fight, would you like to know that the weapons that they have are good American-made stuff, not made by a foreign adversary? What President Trump is talking about is bringing self-reliance back to the United States economy. We haven't had it pretty much in my entire life. Martha, we've lost jobs, we've lost supply chain, critical minerals, critical goods have been manufactured by our adversaries. All the president is saying is, wouldn't you like to live in a country that is self-reliant and strong again? And his policies are going to make that happen.
But I guess the question goes back to how much pain, or how do you explain to the American people, look, this is the goal. We think it's a good goal for the country. But getting there, you have the Fed saying, we're not going to cut interest rates at this point, which the president said, you know, he called Jerome Powell a fool on Truth Social last night for that assessment. But Powell is saying we need to make sure that unemployment doesn't go higher and that inflation doesn't go higher. And he's still concerned about those two things. What's your reaction to that?
Well, first of all, I think the president's right about Jerome Powell. Jerome Powell, he's a nice guy, but he's been wrong about almost everything. He was way too late in combating the Biden inflation, and now I think he's way too late in actually helping us fight back against some of these ridiculous trade deals that have stolen the wealth of the American people. And so I think Jerome Powell's just wrong about that. But when you ask this question about pain, look, the real pain here, Martha, is that we inherited an economy that had the highest peacetime deficits in United States history. We had $34 trillion in debt and growing under Joe Biden's economy. And the president has been very honest with the American people. You don't get back to peace and prosperity by doing the same thing that you've done under the Biden administration, or frankly, that we've done in this country for 40 years. We've got to take this country in a different direction. We've got to renegotiate some of these trade deals. We've got to open up foreign markets to American-made things, and we've got to make our country more self-reliant. These are long-term big plays. I think they're going to make Americans richer and more prosperous. But yeah, this stuff doesn't happen overnight, as the president has said.
So with regard to the debt, which you just pointed out, some conservative economists look at this one big beautiful bill and they say, gee, that's a lot of debt that is going to be added as a process, as part of this process. What do you say to them?
Well, I'm skeptical of them. I talked to Kevin Hassett, who I think is probably the best conservative economist around. And what these guys underappreciate is that the best way to defeat our debt long term is growth. If we have an economy that's growing at 1% a year, there is no way out of the debt problem in the United States of America. If the economy is growing at 3 or even 4% a year, that is the way that you solve the problem. And so what this tax bill accomplishes fundamentally is it grows the American economy, I think, in the biggest way in a generation. Now, if you go back to the first Trump administration, Martha, you had a lot of economists who said the tax bill is going to lead to a reduction in federal revenue. The tax bill is going to blow up the debt. What actually happened is that revenues went up, and then, of course, until the COVID pandemic and then the presidency of Joe Biden, America's financial house was in much, much better shape than it was under the previous administration. So we know that these guys are skeptical. We know that a lot of them are skeptical of reshoring American manufacturing. We think that they're wrong. We think that we've tried their way of business for 40 years. It's led to high debt. It's led to poorer American citizens. It's led to young people who can't afford to buy a home in their own country. We're not going to do the same old thing that we've done and expect different results. We're going to try the Trump way, and I think it's going to deliver long-term prosperity for the country.
Let me ask you about the improper payments that we've seen, because it feels that Elon Musk is sunsetting out of here, and he says he'll still be paying attention to the Doge issue. But, they found about $160-some billion in cuts, which obviously is great.
Sure.
It's a step in the right direction. But the original promise was $2 trillion, and there is still so much waste out there. So, the fraud that has been found, are we going to see people prosecuted for stealing American taxpayer money through the government?
So first of all, yes, I think that we will, because there's been explicit fraud committed. And I talked to Pam Bondi about this. I know that she's working on building the case against some of these people who have committed absolute fraud on the American people. You're going to see some of those prosecutions over the next few years. But of course, people have their right in court, and Pam Bondi is going to do a real investigation, uncover the facts, and then file a lawsuit if she thinks that the facts warrant it. I think the facts will warrant it for a number of people. But on Elon, look, Elon's not disappearing. And you talked about $160 billion in savings. First of all, that's a lot. And second of all, nobody said that the work of Doge would only last 110 days and that would be it. We think that there are a lot of fraudulent people claiming Medicaid or Medicare benefits, meaning illegal aliens, people who have no entitlement legally to be on those programs and are stealing from the American citizens who actually do deserve those programs. So we think there's a lot more waste and fraud that we can find. We think we're going to save the American people a lot more money. But look, if we stopped at $160 billion of pure waste and fraud, that would be an unbelievable increase in government efficiency. That's something to be proud of, but we're going to keep on working at it.
President Trump believes that the ultimate goal of trade negotiations is to build a self-reliant nation, not just an economic issue, but a matter of national security. Vice President J.D. Vance emphasizes that America must fight to put workers and companies in a stronger position, even if the process involves some pain. He praises the newly signed trade deals, calling them a step in the right direction, and pushes back against critics who have underappreciated their impact. He believes that the big, beautiful tax cut plan is expected to boost economic growth to 3% to 4%, which would in turn solve the national debt crisis. He criticizes the Federal Reserve, Fed, for its poor judgment on inflation and interest rates, saying that we're not going to do the same old thing that we've done and expect different results. The Doge initiative, led by Elon Musk, has already uncovered $160 billion in waste and fraud, but this is just the beginning, even as Musk himself is sunsetting his role in the spotlight. DOJ official Pam Bondi is leading investigations, working to uncover the facts and file lawsuits when the facts warrant it, targeting clear cases of fraud, including illegal aliens wrongfully receiving Medicaid benefits. Vance promises that the Trump administration will continue to crack down on fraud, not only to deliver justice, but also to improve government efficiency. President Trump believes that the ultimate goal of trade negotiations is to build a self-reliant nation, not just an economic issue, but a matter of national security. Vice President J.D. Vance emphasizes that America must fight to put workers and companies in a stronger position, even if the process involves some pain. He praises the newly signed trade deals, calling them a step in the right direction, and pushes back against critics who have underappreciated their impact. He believes that the big, beautiful tax cut plan is expected to boost economic growth to 3% to 4%, which would in turn solve the national debt crisis. He criticizes the Federal Reserve, Fed, for its poor judgment on inflation and interest rates, saying that we're not going to do the same old thing that we've done and expect different results. The Doge initiative, led by Elon Musk, has already uncovered $160 billion in waste and fraud, but this is just the beginning, even as Musk himself is sunsetting his role in the spotlight. DOJ official Pam Bondi is leading investigations, working to uncover the facts and file lawsuits when the facts warrant it, targeting clear cases of fraud, including illegal aliens wrongfully receiving Medicaid benefits. Vance promises that the Trump administration will continue to crack down on fraud, not only to deliver justice, but also to improve government efficiency.
If you enjoy this content, please consider subscribing to my channel to stay up to date with future videos. Thank you for watching.